Tony's not.
Tony's not. 1, 2, 3,
Tony and Vicky are out.
4. We have 5. No Tony, no Vicky. We're good.
Okay.
How are you, sir? All right, good to see you. You running?
Not as much as I want. I had to drop down in the marathon.
Okay.
I'm doing
Oh, shoot.
2.5.
Were you
Just
running
give me
again?
the okay or whatever.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I think
see.
we're.
Yeah.
I think we're
Do you
good.
have to announce me or do you have to?
I can introduce you guys real quick.
Well,
Just Carol.
I didn't know it's,
I'll let you introduce yourselves, but
some of the villages, yeah, I'm just going by your.
I'll let you guys say whatever you need to say. So, I think you should have gotten an email from Stephanie just to remind you that we are doing a public hearing for Wicked Jimmy's. I'll let you guys describe exactly what is
Yeah,
going to be
just
covered
read
in the
the
public
script.
hearing, but we've got Carol Rasmussen and Jeanette Lobello.
yes, thank you.
I never know if I'm saying it right.
No worries.
Joining us tonight with regards to that. So go ahead and
Okay.
take it away.
Thank you, Crystal. Yes, good evening. My name is Carol Rasmussen, and I'm a project manager and a duly authorized hearing officer of the County of Chautauqua Industrial Development Agency. I've been authorized to hold a public hearing pursuant to Section 859-A of the New York General Municipal Law as amended. Today is April 17th, 2024, and the time is now 5:33 p.m. We are at City Hall, 4th floor, in the Mayor's Conference Room at 200 East 3rd Street, City of Jamestown, County of Chautauqua, New York. The agency has received an application for financial assistance in connection with the following matter. It's Wicked Jimmy's LLC. They're a limited liability company, duly organized and existing under the laws of the state of New York. They have presented an application for financial assistance to the agency, which application requested that the agency consider undertaking a project consisting of the following. 1, the acquisition of an interest in an approximately .58 parcel of land located at 115-121 West 3rd, 115-121 Allen Street, in the city of Jamestown, County of Chautauqua. 2, the renovation of an existing approximately 33,900 square foot building on the land, together with the construction of an approximately 700 square foot addition therein to consisting of decks and rooftop space. This is collectively the building, together with related improvements to the land. And 3, the acquisition of certain furniture, fixtures, machinery, equipment, building materials necessary for the completion thereof. And together with the land and the building, collectively the project. I also would like to go back and say the land is located at 115-121 West 3rd Street in the city of Jamestown. I mistakenly said Allen. My mind's on the other one. Thank you. Together with the land and the building collectively, the project facility, all of the foregoing for use by the applicant or its affiliates as a brewery facility. And B, the granting of certain financial assistance within the meaning of Section 854.14 of the General Municipal Law with respect to the foregoing in the form of potential exceptions or partial exemptions for mortgage recording tax, sales tax and use tax and real property tax. This is the financial assistance. And C, the lease with an obligation to purchase, license, or sale of the project facility to the applicant or such other entities as may be designated by the applicant and agreed upon by the agency, and do the sublease thereof by the applicant or such other entities to Wicked Warren LLC for the purpose of the operation of a brewery and related activities. So the project will be initially owned, operated, and or managed by the applicant or such other designated entities. The applicant or such other designated entities would receive the financial assistance from the agency. They'd receive the financial assistance in the form of potential exemptions or partial exemptions for mortgage recording tax, sales tax, and use tax, and real property taxes. So there was a notice of the public hearing that was published in the Post-Journal on April 3rd, 2024, and provided to the Chief Executive Officer of each affected taxing jurisdictions which lie within the project facility. The purpose of the public hearing is to provide an opportunity for all interested parties to present their views, both orally and in writing, with respect to the granting of the financial assistance contemplated by the agency or the location or nature of the project. As set forth in the notice of the public hearing, comments may also be submitted to the agency in writing or electronically at the following email address, rasmussc@chqgov.com. Subject to the applicable law, copies of the application, including an analysis of costs and benefits of the project, are available for review by the public online at www.ccida.com. So this public hearing is being streamed. It will be on the agency's website in real time, or a video recording of this public hearing is being made and will be posted on the agency's website. This is all in accordance with Section 857 of the New York State General Municipal Law as amended. In addition, a report of the summary of this hearing will be made, and such report or summary of all comments received by the agency shall be provided to the agency's members, posted on the agency's website. Comments received in writing will also be included in the report and any summary of this public hearing. So I guess that concludes it. Unless, is there anyone wishing to be heard with respect to the project or the financial assistance? So let the record show that there were no members of the public that have indicated a desire to comment with respect to the project or the financial assistance. So at this time, I will call this hearing to close at 5:39 p.m. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your
You happy,
time.
Greg?
Greg's happy, the world is happy.
Are we off the record?
We are not off the record.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, sorry, I was thinking of the other project.
That's
I
okay.
said
That's
Allen
it. Keep
Street.
going
I go
on.
Allen Street.
Thank you.
I heard you say it and I was like,
Not Allen Street.
Thank you, Crystal.
thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. Have a good night. I just have to go.
Okay. Bye, Greg. Sure. Good. Angle, I think. While she's grabbing that, I guess I'll do a quick introduction, and you folks can introduce yourselves, but our first presentation is going to be on the Good Jobs, Great Cities initiative and consideration for allocating American Rescue Plan funds that have already been allocated by council to JLBC to administer. And so Todd, if you want to start and introduce your team, and then you can kick off with your presentation.
Yes. Todd Trainum, Executive Director of the Manufacturers Association of Southern Tier. I also serve as President of Dream It, Do It Western New York. And our organization has been working with the city to help facilitate the Good Jobs, Great Cities Initiative and Coalition. Jennifer.
I'm Jen Swanlows. I'm the Executive Director at Chautauqua Striders. Hi, I'm Erica. I'm the Director of Mentoring and Advocacy at Chautauqua Striders.
I'm Terry Johnson. I'm the Director of Employment and Community-Based Services at the Resource Center.
So this is going to be a team-based presentation. Almost exactly a year ago, the city, Department of Development, in conversations with us, we decided to start a coalition to try to accomplish two things. First of all, better understand the needs of our manufacturers from a workforce development perspective. But secondly, recognizing we got a lot of resources in our community and in our region, and we felt that there was opportunity to better align our efforts and understand what each other's doing and build some stronger partnerships and collaborations. And that's part of what we're here to talk about as part of the product of this effort. A couple months after we had gotten the coalition going, city had the opportunity to become part of Good Jobs, Great Cities Academy, which was sponsored by the National League of Cities and Department of Labor. The city was selected as one of 16 cities across the United States to be part of that. We'll note the smallest city within that cohort of groups. So I think that was a compliment to this type of work and some of the things we had in motion. Just recapping, I'm not going to read this. This is long, bureaucratic statement that came from the Department of Labor and National League of Cities about what the goal of the Good Jobs, Great Cities initiative is. I think what's important is that what we decided this should be for Jamestown is about connecting all residents to good paying jobs and connecting all employers to skilled workers as our big overarching goal and objective. And that came down after working with the group, multiple stakeholders, hearing employers, really to three project focus areas. Energizing the early talent pipeline, so middle school, high school, getting kids charged up, energized about manufacturing opportunities right here in our community, in our region. Building the adult talent pipeline, particularly with a focus on the underemployed. And thirdly, retaining current and incoming employees. Our proposal this evening really focuses around that energizing the early talent pipeline piece in retaining current and incoming employees. And I'll stress again, one of the efforts of this coalition was to say, hey, we've got some great resources here. How can we better support them, lift them up, help them with capacity building, align them, partner, and have better long-term outcomes in terms of meeting not just the needs of employers, but the needs of residents in the community. So we're going to kick it off. I'm going to hand this over to Erica to speak to energizing the early talent pipeline and speaking specifically to Chautauqua Striders and a partnership between Chautauqua Striders, our Manufacturers Association, and Dream Into It. Turn it over to you.
I'll pass these around. It's just a one page.
There's actually some on my desk out there.
You don't need one?
No.
Oh, those are specific to
those,
this.
yeah.
Oh, so
Okay.
this is a little
Different.
different, but I'm sure Kim.
Kim is very familiar with our mentoring program. Kim has been with our mentoring program since the beginning. So we have a 45-year history of helping youth succeed through providing mentors, tutors, athletic programs for students. And specifically today we're talking about our mentoring program. We have a number of school counselors that refer students to us because they could use a positive role model and someone to help guide and encourage them. So we see that with a lot of students that they just need kind of that little extra support, someone to bounce ideas off of, someone to help them set goals and reach them. So with this, we're looking at going into the manufacturing sector and talking to people that work in the industry who would be interested in being a volunteer mentor and pairing them up with students who have also said that they're interested in that in the future. So it would give the students kind of the inside scoop of what would be needed in each of these jobs, they could see just the variety in our area of all the different types of manufacturers, different types of jobs that would be available. So the mentors would meet with them at least 2 hours a month, and it would look a little different from our current programming where we have a school-based option where the mentors go in and meet with the students during school on their during their lunch. People working in manufacturing, they may or may not be able to do that depending on what shift they're in or depending what their employer allows for them for lunchtime. So it might be a possibility that they could do the school-based option, but it would be more likely, I think, that they'd be doing community-based meeting with the students outside of school. We could have like a project-based mentoring where there'd be a group of mentors and a group of mentees together. They could work on projects, discover, different STEM activities together, working within the Dream It, Do It, where there's a work ethic credential and there are certain competencies that they need to be working on that they could do together. I forgot where I was going next.
I think you're good. You're kind of talking about the different types of models that we currently offer, and of course what we do here would be adapted to the needs of the manufacturer. So we had one conversation with Cummins, and that might look very different, what they would be interested in versus somebody like Weber Knapp that's also expressed some interest. And we are in the position to be able to tailor that experience, I think, at this point. If they don't want their employees to leave during the day, we can look at ways to still have a positive relationship built between employees and mentees. And I think we'll know more as we get in front of more manufacturers and talk about what's in it for them and what they're looking to gain from this, so we can, I think, craft the project to meet the needs on both sides.
Right. And what the funding would be for would be to employ a mentoring coordinator who could oversee all of the matches, recruit mentors from each of the different employers, oversee the matches so they're checking in to make sure things are going well, that they're meeting regularly, offer training and support to the mentor, setting up like visits to different places that the students could do together. That person would be just for these students specifically that are interested in going into manufacturing.
Any questions? I'd be remiss in this moment too to not acknowledge that Striders was founded by Ronnie Graham, and his son's here with us this evening with his own project. It's just kind of cool how all this sort of comes full circle. Part of his legacy continues, right?
I appreciate that. You guys are doing amazing things.
So how this ties together with Dream It, Do It, we've been working on the Dream It, Do It initiative since 2009, trying to get more kids engaged and excited about manufacturing careers in our region. We've had over 75,000 interactions with students, teachers, counselors, and administrators talking about the importance of manufacturing to our economy and the great job opportunities and careers that are available in that sector. It's an initiative that has been built by students, teachers, counselors, input from principals, our funders, and manufacturers. We've gone through a redesign of the program, and that's kind of what we're here to talk about, is the integration of some best practices, our experience, frankly some of our failures and some of our successes that we've built into this. Well, we've tried to not build in failures, just the successes, and the use of some technology to help us on the way. So at the end of the day, the initiative's about connecting, engaging, enriching, challenging, and rewarding students on their way through manufacturing career pathways. And we see Chautauqua Striders as an important partner in this, because as we bring students into this initiative, we want to team them up with mentors so these students can have work experience. And work experience, for a 13-year-old is going to look different than work experience for a 17 or 18-year-old. we feel these mentors are going to be useful and helpful in terms of providing students with job shadowing opportunities in manufacturing, staying connected with these students maybe over a longer term to provide additional career and job opportunity, maybe part-time work, internships, and hopefully at some point full-time work with the companies that the mentors represent. But just to give you a brief overview of what we're doing with the Dream It, Do It Advanced Manufacturing Program, we're enrolling students in this initiative at the age of 13, so roughly 8th grade. They enroll with us, they start taking courses in manufacturing classes. A lot of our schools have really stepped up their game and are providing more of that type of program. And these students can start to earn electronic badges. For any folks in the room who have kids and have cell phones or have been gamers, you know, that process of earning badges and rewards is built into our motto, except our focus is on careers and encouraging kids to consider manufacturing careers. As students participate in Dream It, Do It, they earn badges. So for example, this weekend we have a Girls in Manufacturing event. We're going to be building rocket stoves down at MTI. For anyone who would like to join us, the mayor's going to be there to speak to these young ladies as somebody who can be in it's not on your schedule.
No, I know it's on my schedule, that's why I was speaking.
Yes.
Surprise.
As an
She's gonna be there and
inspiration,
she's speaking.
a long career in manufacturing, good example and an inspiration for more girls to consider this career opportunity. So that's an example of just one. We have a big STEM Wars event coming up. It's going to be downtown. It's a 2-day program. I'll pass these around so you can put this in your calendar. Please stop down and check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. We expect over 1,000 kids downtown over that 2-day period, grade school and middle school. Students earn badges for the job experience, which I talked about, and that's why Chautauqua Striders is an important part of this. We have embedded in this a work ethic credential that we worked on with manufacturers in our schools because so many manufacturers were concerned about what they were perceiving as a lack of work ethic. So we really worked on kind of defining what that is so we can do a better job working with the schools and communicating what our needs are as employers and what we define as work ethic. The goal is for students to achieve a certain belt level, and I'll touch on that by the time they reach graduation, where they can earn a frame certificate, a Dream It, Do It lanyard with hopefully not made in China, gold medallion. I just don't have to make sure it was a US made. Maybe we'll make them local.
There you go. I'm on my manufacturing tour, so.
But what we're also doing is working with our employers to highlight opportunities they have. So many of our employers offer like tuition reimbursement, but few people know that type of benefit's available through many of our employers. We're encouraging our employers to think creatively what they can do to incentivize these kids to get on this career pathway and complete one of these belt levels. I referenced electronic badges. Here are some samples. So these are the things, you know, the girls who participate in our program on Saturday will get that yellow Girls in Manufacturing electronic badge in their profile that they can manage through a platform we're using called Tallo. We've had a variety of STEM Wars events that we're badging for as well. And these are just a few samples. This is a summary of some of the programs we run. A couple I've already mentioned, STEM Wars, Girls in Manufacturing. We run a Manufacturing Mayhem Technology Camp, week-long camp in the summer. We have ongoing tech tours. We had one today, working with the schools and our employers, getting kids on buses and into manufacturing facilities and seeing what's going on in our community and all the great products we make. Then, as I mentioned, we have these levels of achievement that students can strive for by collecting these badges over their middle school and high school career, yellow belt, green belt, black belt and master black belt. I think it's important to note from a manufacturer's perspective, this is a platform through which they can identify that early talent, understand the possibilities embedded within our schools amongst these youth in terms of employment and engaging with them around employment opportunities. It reduces the risk associated with hiring early talent. It's expensive, and you probably have the experience. It's expensive to onboard people and then have them leave after a day or two or a month or two. Retention has been a real challenge for our employers. So this helps employers better understand some of the students they're talking to, their skill level, their work ethic and aptitude. And with that, reducing some of the costs associated with it. Understand what kids are really interested in these careers, and help reinforce things like teamwork, work ethic, and encourage kids to achieve these different skill levels. So that's Dream It, Do It. It talks a little bit on how we're collaborating, built this partnership with Chautauqua Striders, which we're really excited about. Any questions on that before we move on
I got
to
a question.
retention?
Which,
Yes, sir.
and it might be too early in the project, but like percentage, like if you have 50 kids that are in the program, how many actually get placed upon graduation or after the whole program is done into the manufacturing field within the
Yeah.
county?
That's a great question, and that's one of the challenges we've had prior to this rebuild in terms of understanding that. And some of it, for good reason, has to do with data privacy issues at the schools. As parents, we didn't want our kids' data out there. The technology we're using helps address that, so we can start to better track more longitudinally what these kids end up doing, whether they go on to further training, directly into the workforce, further training, and then back into the workforce. I can tell you what our goals are. We hope to sign on about, I think it's 12% of the middle school, high school population in Chautauqua County into the program. We estimate out of that 12%, probably 20% will end up actually sticking with it and going into manufacturing careers. I don't have the whole numbers. I could only remember the percentages, but I could follow up with you with what we're thinking in terms of what that population that will either go on to further training and education manufacturing or into work in the area is. But that is the key question. I sit and report to a board of manufacturers. They're all about what are our key performance indicators and what's our return on investment. And like I said, because of data privacy issues, it's always been kind of nebulous, but we've always taken the view that we've got to get out there and tell our stories regardless whether our measures are, the way we're tracking is perfect or not. We feel good about this approach because we think this is going to give us a better understanding of that talent pipeline and ultimately what that talent pipeline ends up doing. Great question. Thanks for asking that. Any other questions? All right. So just backing up earlier in the presentation, the other huge issue our employers are facing is retention. We have a great program in our community that we're looking at kind of expanding and bringing to more employers. So I'll turn it over to Terry to talk about SAFER.
All right, I've got a couple of handouts for you guys as well. Thank you. So our SAFER program starts, it's an acronym for Supporting and Facilitating Employee Retention. And it came to fruition when the city of Jamestown received the Empire State Poverty Reduction Initiative monies several years back. And the Resource Center bid on when the United Way was funneling through the money for that grant program, and we developed SAFER. So we really focused on, we brought a lot of different concepts together. We focused on Bridges Out of Poverty, since it was a poverty reduction program, and we took our years of experience in supporting people with disabilities in employment. What we found is the barriers are similar. It's childcare, it's transportation, it's things in your personal life, it's a variety of factors that impact their ability to maintain their employment and stabilize their employment. And so we brought a lot of those employment supports, coaching mentality supports into the program, and then a lot of the work that we learned out of Bridges Out of Poverty, and kind of created what we now know is SAFER. So it's really designed to support local businesses in improving their retention results, and offering supports to the business and the employees of the business. So I think that's a key factor. It's not just the employees, but we can support the supervisors as well and help them kind of understand some of the dynamics that the employees are facing. So sometimes there's challenges that it's one little tweak, that one little support that they need, and that resolves the issue. And the employer's not really understanding some of the backgrounds of what the employee is going through. They might be quick to terminate them, and they don't have somebody in line at their door to fill that vacant position. So a lot of times what we're asking is to let us work with them and see if we can help them overcome those barriers, allowing them to continue to work, and see if we can resolve them. So, as I mentioned, we started SAFER back in 2018 when we received that funding through ESPRI. And during that period, we worked with 14 local businesses. Some were healthcare, some were manufacturing, and we had some emergency assistance funding that was part of that also assisted people. So, for example, if their car broke down, then we would lose the technology. Speaking of technology. So when their car would break down, we could get some money to help them repair their vehicle so they could continue to go to work. A lot of times, some of the things that we are facing is one crisis would be enough to be overwhelming, and if they didn't have the skills or know how to navigate the systems and supports that are available in our community, then they would usually just quit their job and not continue looking at how they would proceed. So with that, we were providing those supports to the employers. I was just looking at what my next things. To meet the needs of the workforce, we would provide a lot of different supports, and it includes a success. Oh, thank you. It includes a success coach that works at the business. So our success coach would go to each individual business and meet with the employees on their work site, or a place of their choosing. Some employees did not want to meet with us at their work site because they didn't want to, come off the line or, impact their other teams and coworkers, and others were completely fine with that. So sometimes we meet with people at Tim Hortons after work, before work, in the parking lot. It didn't really matter, but we're very flexible. Our success coaches are used to community-based supports and supporting people in their jobs and navigating what they need to do. Recently, we also incorporated wellness as part of our SAFER program, so we have 2 certified wellness coaches as well that can be a part of it if that's of area of interest. So a couple of things that make SAFER stand out, and there is, you guys may have heard of Employer Resource Networks. That's a national thing, and this is really just kind of our local version of that without having to pay big funds into using all of their portals and their information. So we had actually developed this, and then I learned about the Employer Resource Networks. I'm like, hey, I just developed something very similar to that. I was so proud. So it's really providing that case management support for the employees of the businesses. It's that one-on-one, confidential employees. We're not going to be telling their supervisors what's going on in their life. And a lot of times what we learned is the HR departments don't want to get involved. When the employee is having a crisis or a situation, they go to HR. HR really doesn't have the time or want to get that level of detail in a person's life, in their employee's life. They just want them to be able to work, right? They've got their goals and things they have to do, and when, somebody's coming in with a domestic situation or, things going on at home, then it impacts their work, and then the employer has to get involved. And this kind of takes it out of the employer's hands and allows us to get them connected with whatever community resources that they might need that they don't know about. And I think one of the things we learned is our community is very rich in resources, but they're not easy to navigate. It can be very tricky to figure all of that out. And if you work for a shift, most of the community resources are open Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, 9 to 5, and somebody would have to miss work in order to get connected with their HEAP or their wellness stuff. Our success coaches will meet with the people, fill out the paperwork, and go take it for them. Get those, so anything they have to do to keep them working so that they don't have to miss work. So that focus is really keeping them employed. The other thing that really makes us a little bit unique is that we don't just support the employee, we will support their entire household. So if they have a child that needs some additional supports or referrals to other areas, we will get them connected with other local organizations and get them the help. Some of the things we've done in the past is somebody had an elderly parent that was living with them and they couldn't get figure out how to get the in-home care that they needed. And so they kept missing work because they needed to care for their mother that was at home. And so we were able to facilitate and make those connections so that the person could, again, continue going to work. We also spend quite a bit of time providing information on those community local resources. We have a wealth of information and relationships with over 100 different local organizations that we have ongoing solid relationships with, that I could just call Striders, or I could just call, Jamestown Community Learning Council with whatever it is and say, okay, I've got a referral, let's make a warm handoff instead of here's a phone number, call this person. We're gonna engage and be part of that referral and connection. We also do lunch and learns. A lot of the employers would ask us, whatever the topic is. We had one that wanted us to do something on safe lifting, and so we would go in and do a lunch and learn. We had an occupational therapist come in and do a lunch and learn. We had somebody that wanted something on smoking cessation to make their workforce a healthier environment. So we would find experts in those areas and bring them in. And then again, we offer training to management teams as well. So we would hold different things. One of the trainings we did, we have somebody on our staff that's certified in the Bridges Out of Poverty classes. And so we would bring in the managers from different businesses to learn some of those philosophies so that they could really understand what their workforce is like and what the challenges that they're facing so that they could better support their employees. You guys may have heard ALICE, the acronym Asset Limited Income Constrained Employee. That's the population that we're working with. These are just some of the statistics in Chautauqua County. It's a couple years old information, but it's the most current that we have. It really helps you understand why this is such a need. We have a lot of people that are just one emergency away from not being able to, make ends meet. And so if their car breaks down or they lose their child care or whatever the situation may be, their only option is to quit their job. And so we really have figured out that we need to find other ways to support them to get through that. And then this is just kind of some information how SAFER can benefit all three parties involved. The employee can benefit from having that one-on-one attention, support, case management. They're more productive at work. They can focus on work when they're at work and actually be present. Sometimes people are physically present but not mentally present, and our goal is to have them really become a stronger employee. The employer will have increased retention by having employees there, producing more, and having that stronger, solid workforce. And then the community benefits because as people are keeping their jobs, they're continuing to give back and put their funds back into our local community. And then my last slide, I know I'm talking super fast. This is just some of the results we had through our SAFER program. And since the grant ended, we have been doing it internally at the Resource Center. I have a team of 8 success coaches, and they work with our employees at the Resource Center on the same types of things. Some work in our manufacturing environment, some work in the rest of our organization. But this was specifically with our ESPRI grant. We engaged with 151 employees, but we impacted 312. So that's the part that people are always like, well, how, if you only worked with 151 employees, it's because we work with that whole household. So that would be supporting the spouses, the kids, the other people to get them the services so that employee could continue to go to work. We provided 593 interventions. I mentioned already we worked with 14 businesses. We resolved 169 financial barriers. And one thing that's important about that is if we had that flexible fund and we were giving that out, it comes with strings attached. We're not just giving people money to get their cars fixed. They have to have a solid budget plan and meet with us, and we work with them on their budgeting so that the next time something happens with their car, they then have money saved up. And we have certified benefits counselors and stuff on our team that can really navigate that and help them figure out their budgeting based on what they have coming in and how they're going to manage doing all of their bills. And then the retention results that we had through this grant were fantastic. We were really pleased with that. 96% remained employed during that 90 days after that intervention that we made with them. And we were working with new hires, and we were working with some of the individuals that were considered high risk. So 96% with those that we were working with. I know the businesses certainly found a lot of them are still calling us even though the funding had gone away. We still get calls. I was telling Todd the other day that people will call us and we'll give them some information. We're not doing that on-site coaching, but we're not going to turn them away either. If somebody calls us, we're like, well, you can try calling this person or, getting them connected. But, and then we had interacted with over 100 local agencies making those connections for people. And as I mentioned, the success coach does that hands-on. They're like, helping deliver the paperwork, meeting with people, figuring out what they need, and just really doing whatever they had to do to keep them employed. Any questions for me on SAFER? Yes.
You may have said it, what's the 236 total employee, what's that?
So that are
Versus your
people, yep,
engaged
no, I
employee?
didn't say it, that's, I skipped right over that. That are people that, you're full of good questions today.
Pay attention over there.
Those are the people that got referred that needed something very little that we didn't really consider it an intervention. It might have been they needed a phone number or they needed a connection to their own, like supports within their own business, like they may have had a question about their health insurance plan, and so we would connect them with their HR department, or they didn't know who to, go to. But those are like the easy things that it was just not enough of an intervention that we would gonna fill out the referral form and then put them into we use a system called Charity Tracker. And there's a lot of paperwork that goes into it, and if it's something really small, we just gave them stuff and we didn't make them fill out 5 pages of information to say, here, this is the place that you would want to go for that. And I will say one of the other things that we worked a lot in to support people is housing. So we had a lot of instances where people were getting evicted from their homes, and they might live in walking distance to where they work, they don't have transportation, and trying to get them set up with other housing that was affordable, and that we have the program administrator that oversees this is a certified housing navigator as well. So within our team, we have success coaches, wellness coaches, benefits counselors, and that certified housing navigator. So the team is very well versed in how to support the different challenges that exist within the community.
So I've got another question on that. So you have 96 remained after 90 days. So for me as an employer, 90 days is not a long retention. Like I would like to see, or I'd be curious as to what it was after 120 days, what it is after a whole year, what it is after 2 years. Did the person then graduate into a better position and advance themselves, and so the help that was given made them springboard up? Because again, I think everybody at some point has, I think even everybody in this room has had somebody that has helped them at some point in their life. Nobody has, whether it's a parent, a grandparent, a significant other, whatever it is, somebody's been there to support you and move you forward in life. So if this program is doing that, how is that impacting overall?
The long-term
Yes.
support, yeah. So unfortunately, the grant was short-term, right? So it was supposed to be, I think, 12 months, and then it went to 18 months. And so once we got up and running, we picked that 90 days because that was what we were supposed to report back out to the state, that was one of the measures that they had asked for. So that was kind of where we stuck it. So that's kind of what the system tracked for us, because that's the way it was designed by the grantee, because we were putting everything into Charity Tracker. However, we did follow up with people, at least I think we would get the information from HR, the HR teams at the places, and I would say that, and I've got the numbers, I'm sure back at the desk, and I can send them out too, of where we were a little bit 6 months, but some of them would come in, 8 or 9 months into the grant, and the grant was only gonna last so long, so we wouldn't have that long-term stuff. We do know people were getting promoted, but one of the things we did see is that they were getting promoted to higher jobs in the community, but not necessarily the same business that they were in. So they were building up their skill sets and they were moving on, so it was not necessarily having the best retention number to that specific business, but the person's was making a higher income and succeeding. We saw a lot of that, but it wouldn't have been reflected in the data that we had to report out, because our retention was specifically at the 14 businesses that we were following. But I know that we saw happen oftentimes when people were leaving jobs, they were going to better paying jobs with better benefits and at different local employers. So I know that was kind of a point of contention, because we're talking to the employers that we're here to help you with your retention, but sometimes they were building their skill sets and moving on to bigger and better things still within the community, but not at that same business where we were providing the supports.
Third question.
Yes.
Do you hold the people accountable for any percentage of what you're giving them? So let's say, for instance, there's $1,000 that needs to get their name off of the eviction notice and all that kind of stuff. Do you say, hey, we're going to cover XYZ percentage, you have to cover this, we'll fund that for you, but it's a payback loan or a payback program that you need to do by following these certain criteria, so that way they have ownership in the helping and not just giving things away? Because I've learned over 48 years of my life, if you just give somebody something for free, there's zero value to that whatsoever.
Right. So, sort of, yeah, so our policy that we have there, it's limited to how much we can give them. So there's a one-time we don't give more than like, I think 250 at one time, and no more than 500 over a course of a year. So it's relatively limited, so when somebody comes in with a $2,000 vehicle repair, we only give them the money if they can come up with the other amount, or find ways to come up with the resources. We may help them apply for funding through Catholic Charities or someplace else, and see if we can get them to get that full amount. We don't require them to pay it back to us, but we do have some restrictions, like as I mentioned, they have to sit down and do a budgeting plan with us. And when we meet with them sometimes we would meet with people weekly, sometimes every other week, sometimes a month, it just depended. Some people were much more high touch depending on their needs and their situations. But it is limited, we would never pay like the full amount of anything. So they had to be able to participate in paying back whatever it was, in some capacity. And when somebody gets the request, the success coach is the one that fills out the application for them and supplies whatever, and we don't give them the money. Like if we're getting their vehicle fixed, we're paying it to the garage, so that we know that that's where it's going. So we're getting all of the paperwork, so we pay directly to the vendor. We never gave the individuals the cash themselves to get, because getting the receipts back is a challenge, and it was too much of a liability. So we only would do it if we could pay the vendor directly for whatever it was. The other thing that we sometimes did in terms of transportation is Uber, right? Like somebody needed like a cab voucher or something like that, we'd work with getting some cab vouchers, very time limited until they would get their first paycheck. So they might get 10 vouchers just to get them started until they get their paycheck. And then we had one person that was working and had a physical disability, but she walked to work, but she couldn't afford the orthopedic shoes that she needed to be on her feet. It was a simple thing, it cost $80, but she was buying really inexpensive shoes from Walmart because that's what she could afford, and she was in so much pain she was gonna quit her job, and a pair of orthopedic shoes kept her working. She's still employed today, and to us it was something pretty simple that, people don't realize, but she was never gonna be able to save that much money at one time. And then we worked on a plan with her to start saving so much per week, so when those shoes wear out, you're gonna be able to afford the next pair. So that budgeting and planning, and we've got some really good tools that we provide them, and the coach works with them on it on a regular basis.
And then as far as the budgeting and stuff like that, do they show that they're continuing with that budget? Cause I could show anybody how to do anything once, but if I don't pay attention or keep helping them or keep that whole constructiveness there, it could just go out the window.
That's part of their regular visits with them
Okay.
when they meet with them. And so each person and that's why we don't have the 236 as the fully engaged, because of all of the paperwork. They have goals that they have to work on, and so we establish goals with them of what is it that you want? What do you want to do in 6 months, 12 months, and what can we do to get you there? And sometimes the barriers are so many, we have to tick them off one at a time, because some people just have a lot going on in their life, and they're about to be homeless, and they've got kids that might be taken away, and all of these things, and the last thing on their mind is still going to work, right? But if they don't go to work, they're gonna lose their kids, they're gonna lose their, so we take off and we just kind of take the low-hanging fruit, or the most critical thing first, and then we work on that, help resolve that barrier, and then move on to the next one. So it continues to grow, but sometimes you just have to take them one at a time, because it's so overwhelming for the person when they've got so many things going on.
So what you described as a program under SRA with a particular target focus with poverty reduction. I was part of it, so well aware. But this is a different sort of program, seems to be, a different iteration. Does the program change any bit? Did the 14 companies who've seen it and go, oh, we like this, and they got it free last time, is there any skin in the game that they're contributing under this program or not?
So that's what we're hoping for. The timing of this, when the grant came to an end, was extremely unfortunate because it was 2020. And it was right in the height of the pandemic, and we could no longer go into the businesses. So we lost a lot of engagement right as we were coming to that point where we were like, okay, now you've got this service, we would like to sell you this service to be able to participate. So that's part of what Todd and I have been working on collectively with the manufacturers. We've been having some meetings with them and really looking at how they can have skin in the game as well, so that it's not fully funded, but that there's some opportunities for them to purchase some of the services themselves as well.
Gotcha. And this $10,000 in operating expenses, that's the kind of the slush fund to help with. Oh, one other question. What's the case look like?
So for
I mean, that's
one,
13 months.
we were able to do that with one FTE.
Okay.
And then the management support. So as I mentioned, the team dynamic, when we have to bring somebody on for either a lunch and learn or to go through some of those housing navigations, we've got specialty areas, but the one full-time success coach would cover these types of numbers.
In your packet, you have more budget detail, but just, high level, the request is for $412,900. First year for Strider, 60, second year, 62,500. Agreement to it, 50,000 year one, 50,000 year two, and for Safer, 95,200 year one and year two. There is, I think there's a total earmark of 500,000. One of the things if you have the question, well, what about the other amount? We're open to some discussion. I mean, you might have some recommendations. One thing might be some incentives for some employers to start buying in to some of this. We have a contract in place, obviously, with Mass to help kind of facilitate this. I don't think we're going to spend all that money. I've been more efficient than I had anticipated. Unless we want to continue this coalition work, and Mayor, you and I, and Department of Development probably might want to have a discussion around that, and how that fits in with your vision too for the Strategic Planning Commission and so on and so forth. But the request at this point is the $412,900, and get this stuff rolling.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you.
We're all good. Great questions. Thank you.
Can you disconnect that?
Thank you for your presentation.
Yes. Disconnect. It must be that.
They're heading out. I'll introduce Rasan real quick, and we'll let him, finish introducing himself. Rasan is going to present on the Prendergast Landing project, and the funding would be for business incubator. We have $250,000 in that allocated through the American Rescue Plan, and Rasan explain his project and what he'd like to do.
Just real quick as a transition, it's a small world, or Jamestown's a small city, but the connectedness of this room. So Todd mentioned the connection with my father. I'm just going to slide back here as well. One of my dad's really good friends was Greg.
Yeah.
And my daughter is at Binghamton, and she wants to go to law school, she wants to go into human rights law. So my dad calls Greg and says, hey, she's looking for an internship. So this past summer, my daughter interned at the Jackson Center. I moved up here during COVID. My family, we live in New York City. We escaped New York City. It's like, let's just go to Jamestown for a couple of weeks. Let this whole thing blow over. That's when I met Crystal. I had already started my building search at that point, and so Crystal was a great help. But we moved on to Chestnut, and I lived across the street from Jeff, who I knew when I was a little kid, and he was a stud basketball player. And I'm also an occupational therapist. I know Todd's wife is, Sarah's an occupational therapist. I'm doing some work with JCC on the OT program. I bought my building from the Resource Center. I mean, it's like, and I went to college with Erica, and Erica's not from Jamestown. So it's like all this connection. But anyway, so thank you for your time, and I will try to be brief on this. Today I'm just talking about this vision and plan I have for my hometown. I grew up in Jamestown, went to Jamestown High School, I went away to college, went away to grad school, lived in Minneapolis, and over time, as I came back to town, I saw more and more buildings open. Like, whether it's Carnahan's or Collins Sports Shop or Landers or my mother-in-law's, her father owned Brostrom's, and so I always came back to town and I would see more and more empty buildings, and I'd see Lakewood building up, and I wasn't in real estate at the time. Then I came to a point where I divested some of my 403B and I invested with a friend. And I said, where should I invest my money? He's like, do some real estate with me. And so I was doing some real estate work in Houston, and over time I realized, like, why am I investing in someone else's hometown when I can be investing in my hometown? So that began the search of looking for a building that I could buy and contribute to the great work that the city was doing to kind of revitalize downtown. So we thought about it, and I looked at a building downtown, put a bid in, it wasn't accepted. And then Crystal, who I had met in her role, and she just stayed on it with me and found this helped me find this building. And so the rest is history.
It almost got torn down.
It almost got torn down. The Resource Center was going to tear the building down and put up a parking lot, and really Facebook, up on Facebook, kind of saved it.
Yeah.
Like everybody reminisced about Joyce's keg room, and the Maniacs played there and all that kind of stuff. And so I think there was just enough public upsetness, I don't know if that's a word, public being upset, and so they put it on the market and I bought the building. So I'm going to try to take you through my whole vision for the build. It's not just a real estate development, but I named the building Prendergast Landing, and I began to think about all the things that I either could do with the building or things that I was doing other places and skills and experiences that I had that I could bring back to Jamestown. And I really began to think about this Reinvited initiative. Part of it was because people were leaving, businesses were leaving, and I said, what could I do in the real estate place, in the business incubation place, to really help encourage development? And so I played around, I kind of like the marketing piece, I played around with this Reinvited initiative, and it really, I won't read it to you. I think Crystal gave you a pre-read, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time reading, but it really started with me wanting to develop a vacant building and contributed what all that you guys are doing in the city. And so you'll see there's paragraphs here. These are just abridged versions of what you have there, but it just gives you my thoughts of what I want to do with the building. At the core, obviously, it is the buying of a building and the development of a building. So it's a real estate investment, and again, it's my first venture into real estate. My mentor, business partner, CFO does real estate, and so he is on board with me on this from the very beginning. And so it's real estate, it's new venture incubation, which is the business incubation place that we're talking about. It's this whole notion around, why is it not advancing on your end?
Good question. There you go.
Okay. Tourism, and all of this really encouraging development. And again, you have all this, so I won't spend a lot of time here. So if you can see this picture, I had another one that the Fenton gave me that had probably 5 or 6 more steam engines in the outlet. But if you can picture the late 1800s, this was the corner where people who were coming down from the lake, and I saw this as this thriving, bustling place. Now, when I was growing up, it was called the Outlet, and it wasn't thriving and it wasn't bustling. And for those of you who are in town, you would remember it. But if you can see, the building on the far right is the building, right? And so I'm excited to be participating and contributing to what you all are doing on the waterfront. And so this is really what we're trying to reinvite people to. So again, just real quickly, I have a whole plan and strategic plan around this, but I really wanted to just cut this piece out. It's really to develop and showcase from a building development perspective, all things unique and extraordinary about our local small business economy, and really linking the revitalization of Jamestown downtown business core to the redevelopment of the southern end of Chautauqua Lake. And so this building sits right there. And so I envision folks coming off the lake and parking and taking advantage of all the things that the city is doing in that area. So this is kind of the redevelopment piece. And the programmatic objective is really kind of the same thing. It's to fortify all things unique and extraordinary about our local small business and make it a sustainable contribution to the entrepreneurial business fabric. And that's really where this conversation really will land. So just in case you don't know the building, you're not area with it, it is the old Joyce's Keg Room. That's the earliest picture I could get from the Resource Center, literally horse-drawn, water-filled roller making the road. And this building was built in this picture was taken in 1903, but the building was built in 1896. For those that don't know, Jamestown was founded in 1886, so just 10 years after the founding of Jamestown. So it's been around for a while. Here are the proposed elements of the building. On the first floor will be some shops. We'll talk about that and what those look like and kind of the programming around those. On the second floor is a shared office space. On the top floor are some loft, short-term housing units. I'll show you those. And on the bottom, in the basement, is the kayak. So think about 4 different elements that come together and integrate in this building. So the core element is the first floor. It really is, picture if you can, small business owners, kind of too big for the farmer's market weekly, but not quite ready to move into a storefront and lock into large overhead or a long-term lease. And so it'll be affordable month-to-month leases with no one getting too comfortable. Really, from an incubation perspective, this is not where you're going to be forever. As prime as we think the real estate will eventually be because of what's happening on that corner, this is come in, spend some time there, develop a customer base, and then move downtown. Right? And so that's really where I see it from just a space, incubation space. And so the way, I have a floor plan I'll show you, but there is actually, Joyce's Keg Room didn't have a kitchen, so there will be a eatery in there, probably light food, salads, smoothies, something that you could grab real quick if you're skate parking or riding on your boat, maybe paninis or something like that. We do have a coffee bar that's gonna be able to go in there as well. And then there are 5 booths that will be kind of, picture you walk in the front door, and I'll show you the floor plan. And they're just roll cage booths that open every day, and local businesses, local artisans are selling in there, again, month to month. I do hope that the anchor tenant and the largest space will be some kind of store that is selling the amenities that would support the skate park and the waterfront and the bike path. And so we do figure something like that. I've had some conversations with folks in town that you all know as it relates to that. And so this is the main floor. I don't want the space to get stale. So from a tourist perspective, if it's the same shop in there year after year, well, we've been down to Prendergast Landing. We've seen, yes, we buy when we come in town, but there's not a whole lot to see. So I do want to keep it fresh from that perspective as well to continue to generate tourism. So I don't know if you can see, this is pretty small, but this is the building. So you walk in on the door on the left, and there's a long hallway there. There's 3 booths on the left of various sizes. In the back top left corner is where the kitchen will be, so there will be an eatery there. That may be a community kitchen where, similar to the booths, we might have a specific restaurant that moves in for a short period of time and different foods coming in. Right in the middle, if you look at the U as an upside down U, there's a little, it's a 4x6, think Wegmans coffee bar type thing, where there could be a coffee barista there where you can get a cup of coffee. And then on the other side, coming back down the other side, that kind of that anchor tenant in the front, and the one behind that. And then the back corner, there's our obviously bathrooms and egresses and stairs, stuff like that. So this is the layout and the floor plan for the first floor. The second floor, I don't know the best way to describe this, and I know that this lands with somebody, with some folks, and maybe people don't know. Think about kind of your WeWork, right? So I myself, I live in New York City. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment with 2 daughters, 1 bathroom, and 2 dogs. There's no place for me to work during the day other than the kitchen table. And my kids come home from school at 3 o'clock, and my work day is not done. And so WeWork, or shared office spaces more generally, are those similar, those month-to-month ideal opportunities for individuals who are new business owners, who are small business owners, to separate work from home. I know that there has been this whole move towards working from home, especially during COVID. You're finding that a lot more individuals and even companies are having people return back to the office. And so this ability to have small individual offices for up to 2 to 3 people if you're a small business starting. There's going to be a lounge and a network and a kind of a kitchenette, and there will be 3 conference rooms on this second floor as well. And so I can show you what that floor plan looks like. Conference rooms are on the front left, so think about the first one in the front left corner. That faces diagonally to the skate park. And then there are 16 small offices. There are a couple other smaller conference rooms right above that conference room, and then a community kitchen kind of networking space. And so this is what that office space looks like. The programming from a business incubation perspective, both for the vendors downstairs and the business owners downstairs, and for this, will be wraparound programming for kind of creating a business ecosystem and then providing resources and services to the businesses that are in there. Everything from financial support and access to lending, to all sorts of business planning. I do currently work with the Small Business Development Center of Jamestown, so I've been working with Courtney Cortolo, and then also the E-Lab with Crystal's team, and doing business incubation. We were in our 4th year, we're entering our 4th year of small business development entrepreneur training with a program called Fast Track. I currently sit on the advisory board for the state, for the Small Business Advisory Board of New York State. And so all of those resources and all of that partnering that's happening, we hope to bring that into this building. So not only is it a space for businesses to be incubated or places for there to be thought partnership and collaboration, but also bringing programming and resources around those individuals as well. So this is the 2nd floor of that, of the space. And then the 3rd floor and the basement are simply those lofts. And so we will have, with Prendergast Landing, we'll have landing pad 1, 2, and 3. There's 3 different units up there. It'll be a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, and a 3-bedroom for short-term housing, opportunities where people are coming in and maybe needing to be here to work in town, or the local doctor or whatever needs to be here for short-term leasing or renting. And then the kayaks will be renting and storage. It's funny because when I was saying on Chestnut, I was talking to somebody at that time who I watched them come home every day from work, change their clothes, strap their kayaks onto their car, and then go down to the landing to put in. And so one of the things I said is, like, if we could have storage down there where people could literally leave the office and go right over to their kayak, walk across the street and put in at McCrae Point. And I've already had people say, you let us know when we're done, we definitely want 2 of those slips. And so whether it's storage or kayak rental, really having a vendor down there that will kind of take advantage of the waterfront with those and the amenities that are in and around. So those are the different elements of the building. Here are those units. So again, front top, I mean the blue one is the front corner overlooking the skate park. That's a 3-bedroom. The one on the red is a 1-bedroom, and the one in the back is a 2-bedroom. This is our architect's rendering of the building. We've got full architect plan, all of our plans have been done. We've got our MEP, everything's done and ready to go. We had work happening on it. We've done all the demo, and we actually had a contractor beginning to work on it through July. And then to be perfectly honest, it was really about just making sure that we had a solid capital stack before we move forward. So we had some investors. We still have those same investors. They're ready to invest in the project with capital. And it's just a matter of finding opportunities to find some more local or state grant money to help out with the capital stack. Interest rates for borrowing money have not gone down. Commercial lending is still very high, and my financial team who knows I love my hometown won't let me put any more money in the project. They're like, you're not taking any more of your self-directed IRA and dumping in this project, but I will show you the financials on this. Just real quick, I just wanted to show the partners that I'm already working with here in town. So these are the development partners. This is about the brick and mortar in the building itself. Jade Empire is my LLC. I set it up to buy the building. So, but we are working with the Renaissance, with the JRC and Frank. We have received a grant from the Empire State, and so the grantee is the JRC. And so we've been working with the Jamestown Urban Renewal Agency, CCIDA, and that team over there. And then OWG International is my business partner, my CFO, my good friend from Houston, who's kind of mentoring me along the way. He does real estate, as I mentioned, does real estate in Houston and New York City. So these are the partners on kind of the development side of things. And then the program partners, I am also Battle and Banner Consulting. I've consulted with the city, I've consulted with United Way, the Boys and Girls Club here in town, and current clients would be the Small Business Development Center and the Jamestown Public School System around some program design and those types of things. And so I bring to this the business coaching and mentoring through the Fast Track. I'm a SUNY Albany MBA grad, and just bringing all that back to my hometown around small business entrepreneurship. I really have enjoyed working with the city around women and minority-owned businesses, which is really been, it hasn't been it's been a focus for me. Obviously, everything that we've done has been available to everybody in the city, but really have had a good time working with minority and women-owned businesses. JTNY is the initiative that we established with Crystal's office to kind of do that, and so for the past 2 years, that was something that we were doing, and now we're beginning to bring into partnership more intentionally the Small Business Development Center, and again, the logos of the JRC and my business partner. I don't know if you can see this, but this is the financials on this project so far, so I want to be very transparent in where we are from an expense description and what has been spent on the project, the acquisition costs, and all the way through those types of granular things, and then site prep, architectural engineering, construction, renovation. The project, when we first put it in the hands, or our first negotiation with the contractor, was about a $2.4 million project. We are anticipating that going up because of inflation. 2x4s have come down, but nothing else has. Cost of labor has gone up as well. And so I just wanted to give you that, and you guys have seen those as well. And then the projected revenue, and just where we feel money's coming in and where we're hoping it will come in the process of working with Paula Rincon on a second ask, a much larger ask to the state. We've submitted that LOI, and thanks again to the city for the partnership on that. And so that's something we're just waiting to see. We had a call, JRC, Frank and I had a call with the folks at the state, and they really loved the project. And so they kind of said, yeah, get the city to submit this, and so we're hopeful on that. And then I did want to just point out the skin in the game that I have already. And so the personal equity and investment piece there. And I'm full transparency, pretty tapped out there. So I spoke quickly. I wanted to make sure I gave you back some of your evening time and not spend as much time. But this is the ask, is really anything that the city is willing to do on this. If you look at this number, we are not at 2.6. If we were able to get a large amount of what we requested from the state at the 1.6, that's super helpful. And so what I have in there, just kind of as a placeholder, is 175, and I would say anywhere from 175 to 220 on partnership with the city of Jamestown in any way that can be grants. And just being honest there. I have said, I said this to Frank and the JRC folks, my plan, and I want to thank Crystal because she has journeyed with me since 2020. The city and everyone that I've talked to, whether it was the foundations or whether it was the CCIBA, has been very supportive, and I just want to thank you and thank you in advance for that. I do think that, I forgot where I was going with that, but I think that the ways that I partner with the city and the ways that I partner with funders here, I want to make sure that the whatever ways you contribute to the project, I want the city to be able to, first of all, see that, and to be able to take advantage of that, right? So as it relates to the business incubation, if it's the wow factor that comes in when you come in the front door, and that's what it is. I do not have an itemized budget for the floors in the building. If we're at 2.6, I can't tell you what the bottom floor is going to be versus the top, simply because we don't have those bids in from the subs yet. And quite frankly, we're waiting to sign the contract with our contractor until I have these conversations, and until he shows me a little bit more of his math, to be honest, right? So we're waiting to see some of those bids from the subs. So that's all I have. Any questions on anything? I can go back to a slide or whatever.
Do you have a projected revenue, not just for construction, but for operation, like a business plan at that level?
Yeah, I have a business plan at that level. It's going to be pretty light on that. So, back to, from a staff employee perspective, we had business cards made up for my dad to be my general manager. That's not happening. And so we're going to be pretty light on staffing. We will have a cleaning contract. We will have a person on the second floor who's the receptionist for the second floor kind of manages that second floor. So when you come up the stairs or get off the elevator, there will be someone there because packages will be coming, FedEx will be coming, and those types of things. We haven't really pulled together a full operational plan, but we're pretty light because most of it's going to be staffing and then vendors that we need for like garbage removal and those types of things. So great question.
The work area that you have up there, I noticed that the areas are like tiny. Is there?
Yeah, so I'm in New York City. I have a spot for 3 people, and it's probably 6 by 12. Yeah, so, and I needed more space, and so like, most of these spaces are typically built for the size that you would have if you had a cubicle in an
That's
office
what I
space,
say,
right?
right.
So it's a 6 by 6, 6 by 8.
Is that
depending on
something
the-
you could adjust if you decided, hey, I wanna go a little bit bigger?
Yeah, so we're talking, it depends on whether, so in like a WeWork where they have a whole commercial building, they actually build it out where like if you're a person of one, we've got 1-person spaces all the way up to 20-person spaces, so whole
Right.
corporations have their whole team in. Here we have the ability to probably have teams of 2 or 3, but I think at that point, go get an office downtown because there's somebody that needs to incubate and it's a team of 1.
Right.
So I'm trying to be intentional about not letting people stay there too
Right.
long, and that they're eventually, when their team grows big enough, they're locking into a lease downtown in one of these empty office buildings. Right, so that's a great question. We had toyed around with moving walls, it's just too expensive. So like we could have this be a 2-person, but even logistically, if I'm in a 1-person and I want the office next door and someone's in it now,
Right.
so really, in theory, we thought about it. In practice, I think they're just going to be solid walls. The building that I'm in, and most of these, they're glass walls, and so it just kind of it spurs collaboration and all types of things. But that's the hope, and that there's a business community. And when you outgrow your office, maybe you've outgrown our building, right? So, any other questions?
Have you thought about parking down there?
Yeah,
'Cause
so that's a tough one.
parking down there, and if you're having all those people coming in, you know, if you have, I can't remember how many cubicles you had, but let's say there's 20 in there.
Yeah.
That means there's gonna be 20 cars.
Yeah.
There's gonna be 20 of this. There's gonna be, plus if you're doing kayaks too, and you have them in your basement, you gotta walk across the street. That is a very busy intersection that's there. Yeah, there is a stop sign.
Yep.
But 99% of the time, I think that if a JPD was sitting down there, they could probably pull over half the cars going through that intersection for blowing the
Yeah.
stop sign.
So parking is an issue. I know that when my architect presented to the city the first time, I don't remember if it was the planning commission or whatever, there was a question around parking. When I bought the building, I negotiated half of the lot. So there are 3 lots. There are actually 3 lots between my building and the coffee exchange. They're small lots. I negotiated, the Resource Center gave me half of that, and the Resource Center owns 2 of the 3. They gave me half of one of their lots, so they still have another lot and a half that I hope to circle back and negotiate with them. They were gonna turn the whole thing into parking, so whether they turn it into parking or they sell it to me so that I can turn it into parking. But at the end of the day, we have it laid out, and I don't remember off the top of my head, so it's a great question. We passed whatever we needed to from a parking spot perspective. We're hoping that from a kayak storage, kayak rental perspective, or even coming in and shopping, that people may have to park at McRae Point, right? And there's plenty of parking over there. As far as the traffic is concerned, that's another conversation that we hope to have with the city at some point. Because at the end of the day, if you're storing your kayak there, you've gotta be able to walk across the street and put it in. And so there is no way to put it in right there across the street from me, because that's the Resource Center building. But the hope is that diagonally over to the skate park, there's going to be a kayak put in that can be put there. And so maybe the traffic pattern will have to change. My guess is the plans that the city has for that corner anyway, it was probably gonna have to change anyway. So development breeds development, and something's gonna be happening at the Tabone building, and I think eventually the city's gonna have to decide to do something down there anyway.
Did the building next to sell, wasn't that up for sale recently?
There was a cinder block building, a small cinder block building.
No,
No,
the
it's
coffee
coffee
exchange.
No, I looked at the coffee exchange, and I just didn't have the capital to make it happen.
I thought
I
it just
believe
went
it
up
just
for
sold.
sale
Did it
recently.
just sell?
It did just sell.
Yeah, do you know who bought it?
No.
So
I
just.
can't remember the name, but I remember
what?
Yeah,
what you do.
I looked at it, I went and talked to them, I actually talked to the coffee exchange people when they were there, I said, hey, we're gonna be neighbors, let's, and we were trying to figure out, I think the lot behind them is an absentee, he lives in Florida or something like that, he doesn't wanna sell, he's hanging on to it, he won't take anyone's calls. So the hope was that we could get that whole space in between. I don't know what went into that building. I talked to OWG, my partners, and I actually came back to you on this, Crystal. And this is not, I'm not name dropping or even, they are interested in Jamestown because they're friends of mine and they know I'm interested in Jamestown. And so they're willing to make investments. Actually, one of them heard that my partner was investing in Jamestown and he said, hey, if you're doing something in Jamestown, I know Jamestown, I'd like to do something there. The flip side of that is some of the group is like, they said, my partner's name is Franco, Crystal's met him several times. Some of them say, I know that this is Rasan's project and we're doing it for Rasan, and all of Jamestown is really excited about the revitalization that's happening in Jamestown. If we didn't know Rasan, we're not so sure that Jamestown's the best place to be investing right now. And so there's this tug and pull between that, but at the end of the day, they have come behind me and said, let's get this first project done, and then if there are other opportunities. So I pitched something to Crystal about the lots that are next to the Tabone building, I went in and talked to, and I pulled together a pitch and presented it to this group. They decided to go another way at this time. Have you guys heard of air parks? Mm-hmm. So I guess that's the newest thing in rich places where people have a lot of property. Like if you have a private jet, they're literally putting runways behind houses, and so you can literally park your jet like you would park your car behind your house.
Big in Florida.
Yeah, they're big in Florida, they're big in the Carolinas.
Yep.
They chose one of those projects first.
Yeah.
So anyway, not to say, just to say that I'm excited about this, and there are some folks that are actually excited about that. We're asking about it. So, any other questions? I tried to go shorter than the 45 minutes that the group in front of me did, so I think I'm at 25.
What made you pick that building per se?
Good question. So I looked at all the vacant buildings that I felt that I could afford. So both banks, neither of which I could afford. The building that I looked at first was the building right across the street from the Post-Journal. George Patty owns that building. I offered the same money that I offered for this one, and George didn't want to take it. And so I said, okay, Crystal, you turned down our offer, anything else? And we waited a little while, and I don't even think this building was on the market at the time.
They pulled it.
Yeah, and they undersold it, and it took me, I want to say anything when the resource center person was in the room, it took forever. Resource center dragged his feet. I was under contract for probably a year and a half before I got it, very close to it. So the carrying costs, it was an empty building. So anyway, it was actually a better location. To have something on the water versus the one I didn't get. And I had some great plans for the one I didn't get. Very similar. I thought about maybe putting a small grocery downtown. Like if you live downtown, and at the time we were talking about people living downtown. Well, if you live downtown, where do you go to get your groceries? You get in your car, you go to Tops, you go to Wegmans. It was like, if there was a grocery store where you could get bread and sugar and boxes, that kind of stuff. And so I was gonna do something down there. Long answer to your question, it became available, and they took the same money that I offered George Patty.
Wasn't there some grant money already attached to the building down there?
So there was grant money
Not at the
attached,
Not at the time?
not at the time, to George's building maybe.
I think the state had already pulled
Yeah.
out funding for that building.
And so what we did was, rather than lose the money in the community, we went to the state and said, would you transfer that money to this new project?
Okay,
And the
that's what I
state
was
said
thinking
yes.
about.
But they didn't. We had to apply
Oh,
for
yeah.
a new round of funding.
Okay.
So,
Yes, yes.
um,
And I think it actually ended up being a little bit more,
yes.
just a little bit.
It
It
did.
ended up being a little bit
It
more,
did.
so it benefited us.
Yeah.
And that number's in there, it was 100, everybody knows, it's been paper.
182 or 187.
187.5.
187.5.
Yeah, and the JRC's holding that, waiting for us to
Yep.
make it happen, so.
Now, are you living back here in Jamestown or still in New York City?
I'm not. I'm in New York City. I'm back here often, probably once, if not twice a month. I have a lot of client workers, so I do consulting in the city, in DC, in Chicago, in different places. But I have a hometown portfolio that I've always had.
His sisters are both here.
Yeah, both my whole family's here.
No, I mean, I know the whole family went to school though. But
Yeah,
I
my
was
sisters
just,
are
I was
still
just curious. I mean, if you're giving somebody, you know, I moved from Bemis down to Jamestown above my restaurant. You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
when you're involved in the area and you're investing in the, you know, but living in another place, it just seems like sometimes the money comes in and then just goes off to
Yeah.
Never Land and not necessarily.
Yeah, I have one development project. I do not plan on having anything else, and it's in my hometown. If I buy a second building and do something in my building, it would be in partnership with the city and the hometown. I'm a consultant. I'm a nonprofit guy. I'm a business development guy. Otherwise, so yeah, I think part of what I have tried to do and talk about Jamestown being a small town is when I had just started my consulting firm and then COVID hit, which is the wrong time to start a consulting firm because consultants are the first ones to be let go from any budget that's struggling, right? So, and right away, just was able to do some work here with United Way, and I can't remember the Chautauqua County IDEA Coalition. I built that with Amy and everybody that's involved in that, and kind of helped bring those individuals and those entities to the table. And then I did some stuff with United Way. With the Boys and Girls Club and with the YWCA, and currently for the past 3 years with Dr. Whitaker in the school. Yeah. So I figured I want to come home a lot, you know, and a part of it was, my dad was diagnosed and then died 8 months later, and so part of it was coming back here even before he was sick and just kind of, you know, doing some stuff in my hometown with my dad and my sisters, and so I was intentionally getting back here for work. My wife and my kids do not want to live in Jamestown, but they love to visit. So, any other questions? I know you have other things you probably need to get to. But. So yeah, any assistance that the ARPA funding can do for my project, it will be a great. You won't be upset with the investment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So, Eric, we didn't formally recognize you. We want to welcome you to the JLBC. Appreciate you.
That's right.
Appreciate you
Don't you be sorry.
accepting the position. It's so highly paid. So I guess anything else to come up for open session?
Should we approve the minutes?
Well,
Yep.
Luke had to leave and
So we're gonna have to do
forward,
that
so we
now.
won't be able to
Yeah.
vote.
Yes, sorry, yeah, that'll have to go push, we'll approve them with this month, next month,
Yes,
okay?
unfortunately.
I know. So then, the only thing I have been asked to do is call for an executive session with, no action to be taken to discuss 2 items. One is contractual, and the other is possible litigation.
Passing out
So, I need a
some
motion.
information that is
Sorry.
relevant
So
to
moved.
our
So we'll get through the sound leaves the room.
upcoming conversation
Yeah,
and after
right,
I
you're a
stop the
second?
live stream.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you again, everyone.
No,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Have a good evening.
Talk to you soon. Thanks.
Crystal, a minute to stop the recording.
Figure it out.